Hello there! You don't know how many times I've filmed this video, but it's many. This is my review of The Raven Boys. The Raven Cycle, a 4-book series by Maggie Steifvater, a booktube darling, widely praised for its lyrical writing, fantasy elements, and excellent character growth. The Raven Cycle consists of 4 books: The Raven Boys, The Dream Thieves, Blue Lily Lily Blue, and The Raven King. This has been a series that has been on my radar for years. It's something that I have heard about, I've seen people kind of talk about it, and I've seen it in bookstores, and I've thought, I need to read you. I finally got around to reading and finishing the series last year, and I absolutely loved it. I knew I was gonna love it, and I'm so glad that I actually loved it. Like, it's amazing. The Raven Boys is or The Raven Cycle is one of my all-time favorite series immediately. This is not new. The Raven Cycle has been around for a long time. Lots of people on BookTube have read it, heard about it, have their opinions on it, so I am not the first to talk about The Raven Boys. And I keep on calling it The Raven Boys, but it's The Raven Cycle. While The Raven Cycle is a widely loved series, it is definitely not for everyone. It's kind of one of those series where people either love it with all of their heart, or they don't like it or don't care for it at all, and that's fine. Definitely one of the people who falls on the I love it with all my heart side, but I can understand why people might not enjoy it. Definitely prioritizes character growth, metaphorical and lyrical writing over any sort of heavy action plot. The Raven Cycle is a series that revolves around a girl named Blue Sargent who grew up in a family of psychics, but she has no psychic power herself. Blue knows 2 things. 1, if she kisses her true love, he will die, and 2, she hates those stupid, rich, privileged boys from the private school in her town. Of course, she ends up befriending a group of boys from this private school, and they go on a magical quest filled with dreams and friendship and dead Welsh kings. This is a series that I absorbed like a sponge. I ate all of it up. All of my books, except for the first one for some magical reason, are full of tabs and notes and markings. And these aren't even all of them. There are several that have been hidden inside just because these were the important ones generally for making this video. So I definitely did not shy away from kind of annotating and marking up these books. I don't know why I didn't do it to the first one. Maybe I was scared that I wasn't gonna like it, so I didn't mark in it so that if I didn't like it then I could get rid of it, but I'm definitely gonna go back and reread this and mark it all up because I definitely need that. I have so much to say about this book, or about this series. I filmed this video several times, and hopefully I don't have to do it again, and I'll finally be happy with this. But this is going to be my review or discussion of The Raven Cycle. It is going to be full of spoilers and quotes from the later books especially, so if you have not finished the series and you care about the spoilers or anything like that, then don't watch this video. So I've basically broken my thoughts down into 3 categories. Number 1 is the author's influence and the setting. Number 2 is characters and their development and relationships. And number 3, the gorgeous writing. So first off, let's start with the influence and the setting. These are 2 things that are very personal to me, and I don't know if anybody else will have this reaction to these things because they're very specific to me, but I want to talk about them anyway because obviously they're important to me. So first off, we have the author's influence for this. So as I was kind of researching The Raven Boys, trying to figure out if it was a series that I wanted to read, I found a bunch of articles and Tumblr posts that all sort of mention the same thing from an interview or a Tumblr ask or something that Maggie Steifvater has spoken about. People have asked her, what influenced you to write this story? And one of the most common thing that she's mentioned is The Dark is Rising. And The Dark is Rising is a middle grade children's fantasy series from the 60s and 70s written by Susan Cooper, and is one of my all-time favorite stories. I love this book so much. Okay. It is, was very important to me as a child, and I reread it as an adult and finished up the series as an adult, and I still very much love it. It is a fantasy series that's full of kind of lyrical writing and Arthurian legend and Welsh folklore. So Maggie Steifvater has said that maybe like the plot of that didn't really influence the Raven Cycle, but she said that she always wanted to write a book that was like that, something that had everyday magic in it, or magic you could stumble upon, and something that was deep rooted in some sort of folklore. And so we got the Raven Cycle. So having that sort of like background influence from a series that I have loved for most of my life was really interesting and really important to me. And the second thing is the setting. So the Raven Cycle takes place in Henrietta, Virginia, which is a fictional town. Virginia is my home state. I was raised in Virginia, and so having a book set in the state that I grew up in is really special to me. So Henrietta, like I said, is not real, and actually in Call Down the Hawk we kind of find out exactly maybe where it is, because Ronan gives out a zip code to where he lives, and so it's around Sperryville, Virginia. So that's a little more, I think it's around Luray Caverns, somewhere around there. So it's much farther south and west than where I grew up. So I grew up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is a weird place. So Fredericksburg is a town in an area that is really deep rooted in Virginia and American history. Like, I grew up on land that George Washington grew up on as a child, so, you know, it's very historical town, and it's a weird place because it's half like Southern culture and then half like Northern Virginia, like city suburb culture. It's really weird. I felt my hometown in Henrietta. So Henrietta is probably a little more rural and a little more sleepy than where I grew up, but I really did feel Fredericksburg in Henrietta, and maybe there's a little bit of Fredericksburg in Henrietta because Maggie Steifvater did go to college in my hometown, so maybe. But otherwise, the Raven Cycle is full of names and places and situations that I am very, very familiar with. Things like Skyline Drive and fireworks laws and how absolutely ridiculous it is to drive from Alexandria to Herndon, and the summer heat and the fall leaves. I've really never read a book that has felt so much like home to me, and that's something that I really, really love about the Raven Cycle, is that it is set in a place that I know. So number 2 are character development and our relationships, and I think the thing that really shines about the Raven Cycle is the character development. The characters that you see in the beginning in the first book are not the same characters that they are in the last book, and it's in a good way. It's because they have grown, they've strengthened their relationships, they've grown as people and as partners and that sort of thing. So you can really, really see the difference between the characters, and I love that. I really think that the core of the story is not really a search for a dead king. It's more of a search for like friendship and understanding and growth. So the Raven Cycle centers around 5 characters. So we have Blue Sergeant, who is our main character, and she is a fierce little gremlin child who is really set in her ways and is super creative and weird, and we all love her. And there is Adam the magician, who grew up poor and abused and is learning to accept himself and his friends. Ronan, who is full of gasoline and made of dreams. Then there is Noah, who I have many opinions about Noah, but he is the ghost and the smudgy boy, as we will say. And then there is Gansey, Richard Campbell Gansey III. I love him. But Gansey is a boy who has 2 sides to him. One side of him is a privileged, rich politician's son, and the other side is an anxious, scholarly adventurer. I am absolutely a sucker for a good friendship, and this series has that. It has an awesome friendship group. And of course I'm going to read you quotes about all of these things. So in Blue Lily Lily Blue, It was just that spending time with Gansey and the others had made her think that the impossible might be more possible than she'd thought before. But what she didn't realize about Blue and her boys is that they were all in love with one another. Blue was perfectly aware that it was possible to have friendship that wasn't all-encompassing, that wasn't blinding, deafening, maddening, quickening. It was just that now she had this kind and she didn't want the other. It's just like deep friendship that they all had. There's another line, I don't know what book it is, but it's like Blue realized she was in love, just a little bit in love with all of them. And I love that. I love a good found family, tight relationship. My favorite character in the series is Gansey. I love everything about Gansey. He is such a precious being, I guess. I feel like Gansey is really two-sided, but he's also very genuine. At a young age, he becomes obsessed with his quest, and it brings out a lot of him. On the surface, he's kind of this popular rich boy, politician's son, private school, Mr. President, rowing team, boat shoes, and dumb fancy car. But he's actually a giant nerd that loves history, builds cardboard bottles of his town in his apartment, and chews on mint leaves. One of the things that I really love in this story is this kind of underlying message that like Gansey is a king, and I could probably write an essay about like kind of the idea that Gansey is a king from his like commanding voice magic, his leadership, and the trust his friends have in him. Standing in a half circle around his picnic table throne, I just eat all of this like kind of king imagery that is around Gansey, and the fact that like Ronan and Adam are his like magician and his knights. I love Gansey's earnestness and his desire to want to help his friends. He just wants to help. One of Gansey's flaws is that he wants to help and he doesn't understand really how to check his privilege. He just wants to help people so bad, and he doesn't like really see how maybe his position in life will affect other people and the help that he's offering. And that's kind of a two-way street between him and several other characters. Gansey has to understand that sometimes people need to come to terms with things by themselves, and they can't just like throw money at things like he tends to want to do, and he needs to understand people's emotions and the baggage that they carry before he can really try to help them. I feel like Blue and Adam especially help him to kind of understand this and kind of realize his position in life and how he can best utilize his position to help other people. My favorite relationship in this series is between Gansey and Adam. They are the two characters who need to understand each other the most. They are brothers, but they are so different from each other, and overcoming these differences is kind of one of the main things that draws me to love this relationship so much. Adam is the opposite of Gansey. So Adam has grown up poor in a trailer park. He's abused and has to fight for every single thing that he has. Two of them fight a lot about this. They don't understand where each other are coming from, and kind of butt heads throughout the series. Gansey realizes that you just can't fix everything and you have to listen, and Adam really learns that Gansey just wants to help and see him happy. In Blue Lily Blue, where their relationship kind of like really a real turning point for them. Everything had been ugly for Adam, but he knew what Gansey meant. His noble and oblivious, optimistic friend was slowly opening his eyes and seeing the world for what it was. And it was filthy and violent and profane and unfair. Adam had always thought that was what he wanted, for Gansey to know. But now he wasn't sure. Gansey wasn't like anyone else, and suddenly Adam wasn't sure he really wanted him to be. Adam couldn't remember how they managed to fight so continuously over the summer. Gansey, his best friend, his stupid and kind and marvelous best friend. So, like, this is kind of where like they're starting to like understand each other, but it gives like an idea of what their relationship kind of has been. And then the moment that has made me cry every single time I read it is when Gansey and Ronan show up at Adam's court case against his dad, and it's like a moment that they like see clarity between each other, and it's kind of unspoken, and it makes me want to cry. So in the hall stood Richard Campbell Gansey III in his school uniform and overcoat and scarf and gloves, looking like someone from another world. Behind him was Ronan Lynch, his damn tie knotted right for once, his shirt tucked in. Gansey strode between the pews As Adam's father stared at him, he went directly to the bench, straight up to the judge. Now that he stood directly beside Adam, not looking at him, Adam could see that he was a little out of breath. Ronan behind him was as well. They had run. Gansey turned to Adam finally. He was still wearing his glorious kingly face, Richard Campbell Gansey III, White Knight, but his eyes were uncertain. Is this okay? Was it okay? Adam had turned down so many offers of help from Gansey. Money for school, money for food, money for rent, pity and charity, Adam had thought. For so long he'd wanted Gansey to see him as an equal, but it was possible that all this time the only person who needed to see that was Adam. Now he could see that it wasn't charity Gansey was offering, it was just truth. And something else, friendship of the unshakable kind. Friendship you could swear on, that could be busted nearly to breaking and come back stronger than before. Adam held out his right hand, and Gansey clasped it in a handshake, like they were men, because they were men. It's hard for me to get through that without wanting to cry, because I just love when the characters come together and they try to reach an understanding, and they just come out with a strong, beautiful friendship, and I love them. They just have such a difficult and complex relationship, and just seeing it grow and evolve is like absolutely beautiful, and I love every single moment of it. Everyone in this series kind of discovers something about themselves, and they grow and change and learn something about each other and themselves, and it's absolutely beautiful. My third section of this is the gorgeous writing. So personally, I love the writing in this series. I feel like it's so beautiful. I know it's not for everyone, but that's what I think. So I really, really enjoy it. So full of metaphor and imagery, and just I eat all of it up. I'm gonna read some more examples of stuff that I really love. Obviously the things that I've already read are awesome and amazing, and that's why I picked them, especially that last thing about Gansey and Adam. But just like all of the chapter 20 of The Raven King is just like amazing and beautiful to me. I loved it. It's one of the best things I've ever read. I think all of my examples come from The Raven King. So there's this description of their little group of friends. When Blue climbed into Gansey's black Suburban, she discovered that Ronan was already installed in the back seat. His head freshly shaven, boots up on the seat, dressed for a brawl. His presence in the back seat instead of his usual passenger seat throne suggested that trouble was afoot. Adam, in a white t-shirt and a pair of clean work overalls rolled down to the waist, had his seat instead. Gansey sat behind the wheel, wearing both his Alongby uniform and an electric expression that startled Blue. It was wide awake and glittering, a match struck just behind his eye. So this description of like all of the boys is kind of like the perfect, I don't know, description of all of them. There's one more in here. Oh, so this is the description of Adam and Ronan's first kiss, and I love it so much. Once when Adam had still lived in the trailer park, he had been pushing the lawnmower around the scraggly side yard when he realized that it was raining a mile away. He could smell it, the earthy scent of rain on dirt, but also the electric, restless smell of ozone. And he could see it, a hazy gray sheet of water blocking his view of the mountains. He could track the line of rain traveling across the vast dry field toward him. It was heavy and dark, and he knew he would get drenched if he stayed outside. It was coming from so far away that he had plenty of time to put the mower away and get under cover. Instead, though, he just stood there and watched it approach. Even at the last minute, as he heard the rain pounding on the grass flat, he just stood there. He closed his eyes and let the storm soak in. That was this kiss. I love it. There's just so much like beautiful metaphorical writing in these books. I just eat it all up. I'm actually not 100% sure if other books, if like this is a type of writing style that I like, or if it just works with this story and with these characters, or I just like Maggie Steifvater's writing. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't read too many books in like this style of writing, so the jury is still out on if this is like my preferred writing style or not, but it definitely works in this series, and I loved it so much. Just like how, like with that scene where she described like their kiss, like it's not like everything isn't strictly like a physical feeling or vision. It's more of like a metaphor, or it's not physical, it's more of a feeling that you get from something, and I feel like that was really interesting to read about, and I feel like it worked with this really kind of magic story that deals with a lot of dreams and kind of like things that may or may not be real. Those are my general opinions on the Raven Cycle. I could probably talk forever about this series, but I don't really want to give you a 3-hour video of just me rambling and reading from the Raven Boys. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts on the Raven Cycle. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are you like undecided? Have you not read it and just watched this whole video and then got spoiled for a bunch of things? I don't know. Know in the comments. I would love to discuss this book series with many other people. The series has definitely gone on like my top favorites. I want to reread it immediately, and maybe I'll do that at the end of the year or something like that, because I'm just so glad that I finally got around to reading this series. I adore it so much. I'm currently working my way through Call Down the Hawk, which is a different reading experience because it's a little bit different than the Raven Boys, and anytime Ronan mentions Gansey, I just get very excited. That is everything. Like I said, if you have any opinions on the Raven Cycle, please leave it in the comments below. I'd love to discuss it with you. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more bookish and nerdy content from me, go ahead and subscribe. That is all I've got for you guys today. I'm Chrissy Lou. Till next time, matane!